never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I want to start out today's video by saying happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you. And as I've already mentioned earlier this week here on the channel, I love Thanksgiving because I love to eat. I like to wake up eating and go to bed eating. And all year long, you get called a fatso, a fatty, you eat too much, you don't miss a meal, you know, all sorts of things like that. But on Thanksgiving, if you eat too much, it's perfectly okay. So I love Thanksgiving because it's the one time of the year I get to eat and do not get all those funny, crazy, weird looks. But have you ever thought about how they say on Thanksgiving, you know, we're supposed to give thanks for all the, you know, good folks in our lives and our family and all the good things we have. But then in the world of college football, they schedule all the rivals that hate each other. That kind of seems counterintuitive. But anyway, today here on the channel, I want to talk some college football rivalry weekend. Now, of course, we know there are NFL games on Thanksgiving because Detroit Lions always play on Thanksgiving and the Dallas Cowboys always play on Thanksgiving. And now they've added a third NFL game on Thanksgiving. So there's one early afternoon, one mid-afternoon, and then one late at night. But this weekend is all about college football rivalry weekend. Now, today there are no college football games. There's one tonight. We have what they call the Egg Bowl, which is Ole Miss and Mississippi State. They always play Thanksgiving night at around 7:30 Eastern time on ESPN. So if you do want to watch some football today, it'll have to be the National Football League. But it's hard to believe this is the final weekend of the regular season in the world of college football. And as far back as I can remember, there have always been games on the Friday after Thanksgiving for college football. I remember back in the day when I was in school and Texas and Texas A&M were rivals. They always played on the Friday after Thanksgiving. But it seems like now there are just about as many games on Friday as there are on Saturday, which I guess is good in a way because if you do not have to work tomorrow and you're not a shopper, so you're not going to be doing any of this crazy madness sales that all these companies have going on, and you're at home, instead of having only one or two games to watch, you've got college football on all day long. It starts at noon tomorrow when we have TCU at Oklahoma on Fox. And then we have Iowa at Nebraska on CBS. Now, these two teams have played on the day after Thanksgiving for as far back as I can remember. It's been at least 25 years. But the game used to be on ABC. This year it's on CBS because of the new CBS Big Ten contract. We have Miami and Boston College. That'll be the ABC noon game. Then we have Memphis at Temple on ESPN. Toledo at Central Michigan on ESPN-U. And Ohio at Akron on the CBS Sports Network. Then at 3:30 we have UTSA at Tulane on ABC, and Utah State at New Mexico on the CBS Sports Network. 4 o'clock on CBS we have Missouri at Arkansas, and Air Force at Boise State on Fox Sports 1. 7:30 tomorrow night we have Texas Tech at Texas on ABC, and Penn State at Michigan State on NBC. And then at 8:30 tomorrow night we have Oregon State at Oregon on Fox. Now that is the Friday games in the world of college football. So not as many games tomorrow as there will be on Saturday, but it's still enough to keep you busy and give you something to watch all day long. There's also an NFL game tomorrow as well. So not only are there 3 NFL games today, there's one tomorrow at 3 o'clock, but the game tomorrow is on Amazon Prime, and I honestly don't know how many people have Amazon Prime, but if you do have Amazon Prime and none of the 3:30 or 4 o'clock games tomorrow look good to you, then you can watch the Dolphins and the Jets. But I was talking to somebody yesterday who is a Georgia fan, and we were talking about the new college football playoff poll, and I told him, you look at that poll and you see now why people hate the SEC, because Tennessee has no business being ranked. Tennessee has not beat anybody worth a darn all year long. They lost to an absolutely pitiful Florida team. For whatever reason, Tennessee just does not play good in the swamp. They haven't in 30 years. We don't know why. It's just one of those things that for whatever reason it happens. If Tennessee's going to Florida, they're either going to lose or they're going to win an extremely ugly football game. No matter how bad Florida is and how good Tennessee is, Tennessee just does not play good in the swamp. But you lost to an absolutely pitiful Florida team. The other 3 games that you lost, those 3 teams were better than you, but you didn't just lose. You weren't competitive. In the Bama game, you just got shut out in the second half. Then you scored 7 against Missouri, and you scored 10 against Georgia. So they're not just getting beat, they're getting embarrassed, but they're still ranked. Why? Because they're in the SEC. And I guarantee you, if you ask any of the voters how come they're ranked, they're going to say, well, they're in the big bad SEC, even though I don't care what conference you're in. The last 2 games, they've been outscored something like 74-17 or 75-17. I forget exactly how many points Missouri scored. Georgia scored 38, but Missouri scored between 36 and 38. So the last 2 games, they've been scored something like 74-17. They've been outscored. When you get outscored like that, I don't care what conference you're in, That's embarrassing. They're not competing. They're not competitive. They look terrible. They have no business being ranked, but they're ranked because they're in the SEC, just like Auburn. Auburn lost to New Mexico State last week. And if you look at the stats and the box score of that game, New Mexico State didn't have any special teams yards. So it's not like they had some kick returns or punt returns. They didn't. And Auburn didn't have a lot of turnovers to give New Mexico State some cheap points. New Mexico State just beat Auburn. They had 23 first downs, and I think Auburn had 12. They didn't just beat Auburn, they dominated them to the point to where I believe if those two teams played again today, New Mexico State would beat Auburn again today. But after the game, it was New Mexico State beat Auburn, nothing else about it. But I guarantee you, if New Mexico State had to win in and beat North Carolina or Louisville or Florida State, all you'd hear about is, well, look at that. Them ACC teams are losing to New Mexico State. But New Mexico State beats Auburn, and there ain't been a word said about it all week long, ever since the game was over with on Saturday. But Tennessee has no business being ranked. Now, they're about where I thought they would be before the season started. I think I picked them to go 8-4 or 9-3, and they'll beat Vanderbilt Saturday because Vanderbilt's absolutely horrific, and they're going to finish 8-4, so they're about where I thought they would be. But I thought they would lose to Georgia but be competitive. I thought they would lose to Bama but be competitive, and they were not competitive. And I thought they would lose to Missouri but be competitive, but they were not competitive. And I think a lot of us now have to look at Josh Heupel and say, you know what, maybe we were wrong about him because he's built this reputation on being an offensive genius, and no matter who he's got at quarterback, he's going to score points. Well, this year, that's not true. Their offense has done good against UConn and Austin Peay and whoever else they played. That was awful. But when they've played decent teams, their offense is not any good. And it has not got better as the season has went on. I don't think it's got worse, but it definitely has not got better. But the next time you're talking to your friends and you want to know why people hate the SEC, that's the reason why. You've got a team in Tennessee that has no business being ranked whatsoever, but they are. And the reason why they are is because everybody wants to give you this stupid narrative that the SEC is completely dominant. Well, if you make Tennessee fall out of the rankings, all of a sudden you got to say, you know what? Maybe we are not as dominant as we try to portray ourselves to be. I've always said the conference is top heavy, but after that, the rest of the conference is average. Still that way. Georgia's great. Georgia's elite. Alabama's great. Ole Miss and LSU are borderline great. After that, the rest of the conference is no better than the Big Ten, no better than the Big 12, no better than the ACC, and no better than the Pac-12. That's just a fact. Coming up on Saturday at noon, we have the game of games, the game that everybody's talking about, Ohio State at Michigan. That'll be on Fox, as it is every single year. It has been ever since Fox started carrying the noon game. Probably will be as long as Fox carries a noon game. Fox's noon game is almost always the Big Ten. It's the Big 12 on occasion, but it's usually the Big Ten, and there's no better game, no bigger game in the Big Ten than Ohio State at Michigan. Me personally, if I had a vote in the college football playoff poll this week, I would have had Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Washington 3, and Michigan 4. But the reason why they've got Ohio State 2, Michigan 3 is so that when they play this game on Saturday, it's a 2-3 matchup instead of a 2-4 matchup. Also at noon, ABC, Kentucky at Louisville. And then we have Texas A&M and LSU on ESPN. Indiana at Purdue on the Big Ten Network. Pittsburgh at Duke on the ACC Network. Houston at Central Florida on FS1. Navy at SMU on ESPN2. Troy at Southern Miss on ESPNU. And Miami of Ohio at Ball State on the CBS Sports Network. And then at 2 o'clock on the Charlie Whitehurst Network, we have Wake Forest at Syracuse. And if you have not heard, Syracuse announced, I believe it was on Sunday, that their head coach, Dino Babers, was going to be dismissed. I kind of had a feeling that was coming because for the last handful of years now, it seems like they're 5-7, 6-6, 5-7, 6-6, and just cannot get over the hump. But Syracuse is an extremely hard place to win. But since this is the final weekend of the regular season, next week, after all these games are completed, there's probably going to be a lot of head coaches that get dismissed, and we'll start the coaching carousel because, as always, a coach will leave this school and go to this school, so another coach will leave this school to go to this school. That happens every year. 3:30 on Saturday, Alabama at Auburn on CBS. Arizona and Arizona State on ESPN. BYU is going up against Oklahoma State on ABC. Vanderbilt and Tennessee on the SEC Network. Liberty at UTEP on the CBS Sports Network. Northwestern at Illinois on the Big Ten Network. Wisconsin and Minnesota on Fox Sports 1. Maryland and Rutgers on the Big Ten Network. Virginia Tech at Virginia on the ACC Network. Georgia Southern and Appalachian State on ESPNU. James Madison at Coastal Carolina on ESPN2. Now, I feel so bad for James Madison because last week they were even talking about they were going to sue the NCAA. If I'm not mistaken, the governor of the state of Virginia even said he was going to sue the NCAA because it was not right for James Madison to not be able to go to a bowl game. We're undefeated. We have to go to a bowl game, and then you go out and lose. Now, of course, they lost to Appalachian State, who we know they're always good. They're not as good now as they were a handful of years ago, but they're still a really good football team. But you can't do all that and talk about how you've been done wrong and then go out and lose. Now, of course, they had no leg to stand on, and I've mentioned it before here on the channel that I didn't think it was right that they couldn't go to a ball game. But it is in the NCAA rule book that if you move up from FCS to FBS, then for 2 years you cannot go to a bowl game. So I knew it was in the rule book, but to me it was different because it's different if you're asking to be moved up. But they were told they had to move up. So to me, it's a different ball game because there's a difference between being asked if you can move up and being told, hey, you've got to move up. And then your punishment for moving up is you can't go to a bowl game. But they had no leg to stand on because it is in the rule book, but you can't do all that threatening to sue and then go out there and get beat. 4 o'clock Saturday, we have Washington State and Washington on Fox. And while I'm thinking about it before I go any further, the New Mexico State head coach Jerry Kill is apparently, supposedly, according to rumors, the leading candidate for the Michigan State job. And even though he is 62 years old, if Michigan State does want him in East Lansing, I can't blame them because that man has won everywhere he's ever coached. But if you're a long time a college football fan, you might remember that this is the same guy that has had to resign from multiple head coaching jobs because of health issues. He was at one school, I want to say it was Minnesota, but I might be wrong, and he had seizures on the sideline, and he almost died 2 or 3 times. And they said he would probably never coach again. Now, of course, he's back coaching. This is his 6th head coaching job at New Mexico State, and the man has won everywhere he's been. But I just don't know if I'm Michigan State, if I want to go after the guy when, these health issues, these health concerns, they might pop up again next year, 2 years from now. We don't know. To my knowledge, they never really figured out why he was having these seizures. He was just having them. So if you're having them at a young age, then chances are, as you get older, it's not going to stop. But if Michigan State wants him, I don't blame them at all. I just hope Jerry Kill can continue because the man has won everywhere he's been. And just like Iowa head coach Kirk Ferentz, who nobody has ever said a bad word about, I have never heard anybody say anything bad about Jerry Kill. They say he is one of the nicest people you'd ever meet in your life. So I want the man to succeed. 7 o'clock on Saturday, we have the battle of the backup quarterbacks. Florida State at Florida. Both of these teams lost their starting quarterbacks for the year in their game last weekend. Then we have West Virginia and Baylor on Fox Sports 1. And then 7:30 on Saturday, we have Georgia at Georgia Tech on ABC. The only game that matters, the Palmetto Bowl, Clemson at South Carolina on the SEC Network. Kansas and Cincinnati on ESPN 2. And Charlotte at South Florida on ESPN U. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction and say that immediately following the Cincinnati game Saturday night, they're going to fire Scott Satterfield. I know it's his first year, but to me it was blatantly obvious after about game number 3 that this move is just not going to work. So I think the Cincinnati job will be open first thing Sunday morning. 8 o'clock Saturday night, we have Iowa State at Kansas State on Fox, and North Carolina and NC State on the ACC Network. And then at 9 o'clock, we have Wyoming at Nevada on the CBS Sports Network. 10:30 Saturday night, California at UCLA on ESPN, and Fresno State and San Diego State on Fox Sports 1. And that is a list of all the televised games in the world of college football for tonight, all day tomorrow, and all day Saturday. And I want to go ahead and put a bug in your ear that I am thinking about making some changes to the YouTube channel. I have not yet decided whether I want to go down this path or not. So that's why I say I'm thinking about it, because honestly, really, truly, I have not made a decision one way or the other. If I do decide to go down this path, it'll be first of the year, And that's why I want to go ahead and put a bug in your ear now, because the first of the year is only about 6 weeks away. But I am thinking about it. So if I do, I'm giving you a 6-week heads up that you'll be seeing some changes to the YouTube channel first of the year, if I choose to go down this path. And honestly, I have not decided one way or the other. But it is hard to believe this is the final weekend of the regular season in the world of college football. Now, of course, even though it's the final weekend of the regular season, it's still going to fly by pretty fast over the next month or so, because this is the final weekend of the regular season. Then next weekend, of course, we have conference championship games. And then I believe the following week is when the transfer portal, the first go around, opens up. I think it's the first full week in December. And then, of course, the second Saturday in December is always the Army-Navy game. And then the following Saturday, bowl games start. So even though it's the last weekend of the regular season, the month of December goes by pretty fast. And then the month of January, after the national championship game, kind of slows down. And then, of course, beginning of February, we have National Signing Day. And then right after that, around mid-February, is when people start saying they miss college football. And then they'll say that up until end of March, 1st of April, when we have all the spring games. And then they'll start saying they miss college football again all the way up until August, when it'll be about time to start the 2024 season. So, yes, it is the final weekend of the regular season, but between the transfer portal and the conference championship games and the Army-Navy game and the beginning of bowl games in mid-December, the month of December is pretty much a college football month as well, just not a regular season month. So we are done with the regular season come Sunday morning, but nowhere near done with the 2023 college football season. Any thoughts on any of this? Please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. And for all of the subscribers and viewers in the upstate of South Carolina, if you have not seen or heard yet, Anderson University has their inaugural college football season in 2024, and they released their first ever schedule yesterday. And I bring that up because if you're a college football fan and you enjoy and love the atmosphere of going to games, but you can't really afford going to a game, I understand. Games are expensive. But I'm sure going to an Anderson game is going to be a lot cheaper than going to a Clemson game or a Georgia game or an Alabama game or a South Carolina game. So check ticket prices for the inaugural 2024 Anderson University college football season. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What is the leading cause of dry skin? Towels. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.